Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be here today?
Yeah, sure. So I got into software development about 30 years ago, and I've worked in the industry in all sorts of different kinds of things, from telecoms to robotics. I got interested in extreme programming around 2000, and I guess that's how I got connected to the software craftsmanship movement. I am probably best known for writing a book about agile coaching, which is something that I did used to do, but I stopped doing that a while ago, and I've now returned to doing hands-on software development. So currently working at a company called TES Global, which specialises in supporting teachers worldwide.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing at the moment.
Thank you very much. And it's 10 years now since software craftsmanship started on, and 10 years on from the start of software craftsmanship, how do you see it in terms of its impact, and what do you see for the movement in the future?
I think I probably have a very different perspective on software craftsmanship, because I guess I was really interested in extreme programming before that, and I think many people see software craftsmanship as kind of wrapping the extreme programming technical practices. However, I was also very heavily involved in the agile movement, and the software craftsmanship movement was kind of like a breakaway from that. So, and basically sparked by Uncle Bob, kind of saying, we had this big agile conference. The idea was to bring all these disciplines together, so you would have managers and designers, and what ended up happening was that the developer track went from being the whole conference to being a marginal part, and then programmers didn't really want to go to the conference because there was not enough programming stuff for them. And then what happened was they kind of split off a conference for software craftsmanship alongside the Agile conference when we were in Chicago. And I think it was maybe 2009, 2008, something around that period. But basically, so my perspective is, I saw this kind of breakaway thing where developers were going, oh, look, we want to talk to each other about stuff, and we are finding ourselves squeezed out. But for me, it's really quite important that developers are working much more with business people. So in a way, I saw it as a bit of a retrograde step, because it was like developers talking to developers and stopping talking to business people. Now I know, talking to Sandro and many of the people in the software craftsmanship movement, that software craftsmanship is wider than that, but it very often turns out that the sessions at software craftsmanship conferences start focusing in on the coding aspects and less on the collaborating with business people aspects. And I think it's quite crucial to focus on that. So what I would hope going forward with the software craftsmanship movement is that more attention is paid to developers working more closely with business people, trying to help them solve problems iteratively, and getting much more engaged in that side of things.
Yeah, I would. Your talks about working with legacy code, and legacy code is something that virtually everyone has to work with at some point in their careers. Do you see it as something that a craftsperson should be able to handle, and why should they?
It's essential. I mean, pretty much every project, unless you just write code on your own, you're going to come across code that is written by other people previous to when you were there. And so that's for my definition of legacy code. Legacy code is code written by other people when you weren't there, and you kind of inherit the code, try and have to figure out what to do with it. So I think it's like a core skill is to be able to engage with it and work out how it works and how to extend it, or how to delete it if that's the right thing to do.
Quite often, I imagine you've had some experience in the startup world, and quite often in the startup world, especially with the growth of lean business practices, you tend to see software that has been implemented very quickly and is not always of the highest quality. Have you had some experience with this in any sense in your work in the startup world?
I would say actually no, because the startups that I've worked with were actually XP startups. So, for example, I worked with Connextra, which was one of the first companies in London to be using XP. everything was done using test-driven development, pair programming. There was a lot of attention to what we would now call craftsmanship of code. And so we didn't just sling stuff together and put it out there. We were like doing test-driven development at that point. The next startup I worked with was Unruly. Unruly, similarly, was XP from the start and actually was founded by the people who left Connextra. And then the next startup I worked with after that was Makers Academy. And because they were a coding school helping new people become software craftspeople, they therefore had a very high attention to clean code, test-driven development. So I would say I've been lucky in that the startups I work with have actually had a very high bar in terms of code quality.
So if you do it right from the start, you save yourself a lot of problems down the line.
I think so, yes. And
Yeah.
I think it is easier to bring more people in to work on that code base if you develop it, with that attitude from the start. And actually, one of the big principles behind XP was embracing change, to be able to change things swiftly. And if you've got a good set of unit tests backing it, then you can be more confident in your changes. So, yeah.
I think that's an important lesson. Recently, I've heard that you've actually changed your way of working, that you've moved back into a development role. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and how you're finding your new journey?
Yeah, so I guess for quite a long period of my career I've been doing coaching and helping teams be agile and helping developers work more closely with the business. And I decided, and this is partly through personal factors, I thought I'm sick of commuting to London because I live quite far out. I live about 100 miles out of London. I thought I want to be able to work remotely. I don't want to have to come into London. How can I do that? And I realised that there were people who did coding from home, and I thought, well, maybe I can do that. So I kind of took a couple of job changes. So I was a very busy team lead, and I got the occasional hour a week or so to do coding when I was at Unruly. But then when I moved to Makers Academy, I was the only developer. So that meant I could do lots of development. There was no team to lead, and then I could work from home. And then while I was there, the company where I work now asked me to pop in and have a look at their XP practices, and I said sure. And then I noticed that they had quite a few people who were not in the office, and I said, well, I see you have some remote working. And they said, oh yeah, we have a remote first policy. And I went, oh, does that mean some people never come into the office? They said, yes, it's fine. You can be wherever you are in the world as long as you can work in our style of working, you can do that. So I said, well, I'm interested. Can I apply for a job? So that's how I came to be where I am now, and I'm very much enjoying it.
And you're finding you're enjoying the change of pace and the...
Yes, and yes, it's really nice to get back to coding and delivering. There's quite a nice feeling when you deliver stuff into live and you see people using it, so yeah.